You saw their name on your phone last Tuesday, and your first feeling wasn't love, it was dread. And you haven't told anyone that, because what kind of person dreads a call from someone they love? But you know exactly what was on the other side of that call. The same conversation, the same spiral, the same version of fine that isn't fine. And you would have had it, again, because that's what you do. Except this time, somewhere underneath the guilt, there's a question you've never said out loud. What if I've done everything I can? What if nothing I do is going to change this? That's the exhaustion of loving someone who's choosing the thing that's destroying them, and nobody is giving you permission to feel it. Maybe it's a spouse who's drinking again. Maybe it's an adult child who keeps going back to the relationship everyone can see is pulling them under. Maybe it's a parent whose choices are poisoning the whole family and who explodes every time someone says something about it. You've been told that love never gives up. That prayer changes things. That if you just stay present enough, faithful enough, patient enough, something will shift. And you've been doing all of that. Showing up, praying, absorbing the fallout, losing sleep over someone who doesn't seem to notice any of it. And the thing eating you alive isn't that they're falling apart. It's that some quiet voice in the back of your head has started whispering that maybe you're supposed to stop trying to hold them together. And that voice feels like the worst kind of betrayal. What I'm going to give you today is where Scripture draws the line between carrying someone's burden and carrying their consequences for them. That line is sharper and more compassionate than you'd expect. And it lands somewhere most people are afraid to look, which is the possibility that loving someone and rescuing them are not the same thing, and that you might have been confusing the two for a very long time. Galatians 6, verse 2. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. 3 verses later, same chapter, same letter. Galatians 6, verse 5. Each one should carry their own load. If you've read those back to back and thought Paul was contradicting himself, you're not alone. Carry each other's burdens. But also, everyone carry your own load. Which is it? The Greek answers this and the English hides it. The word for burden in verse 2 is baros, a catastrophic weight, the kind that breaks a person if they try to carry it alone. A sudden tragedy, a loss that takes your legs out. The word for load in verse 5 is fortune, a soldier's backpack, the daily weight every person is responsible for carrying themselves, your choices, your consequences, your daily life. Paul isn't confused. He's drawing a line. When someone is being crushed by something they didn't choose, you step in. When someone is refusing to carry the daily weight of their own decisions, you stepping in isn't love. It's you picking up a backpack that belongs to them, and every time you pick it up, you confirm that they don't have to. The person you're lying awake about, some of what they're carrying is a burden. Some of it is a load. And you've been treating all of it like it's yours to hold. Solomon saw this with uncomfortable clarity. Proverbs 19, verse 19. A hot-tempered person must pay the penalty. Rescue them, and you will have to do it again. That last part. You will have to do it again, not might. Solomon states it as a guarantee. If you rescue someone from the consequences of their own choices, you haven't helped them. You've reset the clock. And the clock always runs back to the same place. This one stings because the rescue never feels like enabling while you're doing it. It feels like being a good person. It feels like this is what faithfulness looks like. It feels like, if I don't do this, who will? And that last one is the question that keeps the whole cycle running. Because the answer you're afraid of is nobody. And the answer Scripture keeps pointing to is that's the point. Sometimes nobody stepping in is the only thing that lets them feel what their choices are actually costing. Everyone knows the story of the prodigal son. Luke 15. The younger son demands his inheritance, leaves, wastes everything, hits bottom, comes home. The father runs to meet him. Grace, the robe, and the ring. But most people skip the middle. The part where the father does nothing. The son asked for the money. The father gives it. The son walks away. And the father stays home. Doesn't follow. Doesn't send someone after him. Doesn't show up in the far country with a rescue plan and a camel home. He lets his son walk into the thing that's going to cost him everything. And then he watches the road. If the father had followed, the son never arrives at, he came to his senses on his own. The far country is where that happened, and the father, who loved him enough to let him go there, was still standing at the door when he came back. He'd been watching the whole time, and that's the principle. But a parable is clean. Real life is not. Diane and I used to work together. Her son had been in and out of trouble for years. She'd paid for treatment twice, covered his rent after the relapse, called his employer once, and made an excuse she still feels sick about. Every time she told herself this is what mothers do. Every time the clock reset. She started dreading the phone after dark. The prayers got shorter. Less like conversation, more like bargaining. Just fix him. Just this once. The turning point wasn't dramatic. It was a Thursday afternoon. He called asking for money and she said no. Not in anger, in something quieter than anger. Exhaustion that had finally outrun the guilt. She hung up and sat in her kitchen for an hour, convinced she'd just failed her own child. Someone in her small group, a woman who'd walked through it with her own daughter, said something that week that cracked something open. She said, "You didn't abandon him. You just stopped standing between him and the thing that's going to wake him up." Not the most elegant sentence, but Diane told me she sat in her car in the church parking lot for 20 minutes after hearing it, because she'd never had anyone frame it that way, that stepping back could be an act of love and not a failure of it. It took months. He didn't call the next week or the month after, but when he came back, it was his decision, not her rescue, his actual choice. And that was different from every other time. Diane loved her son the whole time. The only thing that changed was what the love required of her. Hold the door open. Stay where they can find you, and stop following them into the far country. It will feel like giving up. It's the same thing the father did. And he was still there when his son came home. You know that feeling at 2 a.m. when the house is quiet and your mind won't stop running? When it's not even about another person anymore, and the fear is entirely yours and you can't explain it, and you can't turn it off? Turns out Scripture has something to say about that specific hour. And it caught me off guard.